Welcome to this week's episode of Eye of the Swarm, Season 5, Episode number 8, your deep dive into anything and everything related to Yellowjacket athletics. He's the big sound Matt Johnson. I am Jon Garver, and good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, not bad. A lot of turkey.
Yeah?
A lot of food was eaten. Everybody got together.
Where did we get together?
Down in the cities.
Okay.
At my sister's house in St. Paul, over by St. Thomas and McAllister.
Okay.
And my sister had to work, or, well, not technically, she was on call. So she wasn't really working. She didn't have to work that day. They didn't call her in. But she was going to be unable to cook. So my brother-in-law was in charge of actually ordering the food this year. And the company that they
He did okay?
Did just fine.
Didn't drop the ball?
No.
Okay.
No, the food was outstanding.
Good.
This year. The only complaint that I had was probably the fact that there was a little bit too much nutmeg and cinnamon in the apple pie for my taste. It was pretty dark with those two seasonings in there.
Sure.
Those two spices in there. But other than that, the food was fantastic. Really, really good this year. It was better than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. And it was, Thanksgivings in my family are always a little bit more complicated because my brother-in-law is a vegetarian. So we also had to have a tofurkey there too. Mm-hmm. So we didn't do any turducken or anything. But
right.
We did do the traditional turkey. He's the only one in my family that is a vegetarian. Actually, he's pescatarian, but he had the tofurkey as well. So there was a lot of food that had to come in and be heated up and everything. But and the company that did it, I don't know which one it was.
But they did well.
But they did really well. Mm-hmm. They did really well. The stuffing was outstanding. And that's kind of how I judge my turkey day, is by how the stuffing is. I'm a huge stuffing guy.
Okay.
I love stuffing.
I do too.
Yeah.
And
actually, this was how good it was. I even ate the sweet potatoes this year, and I'm not a sweet potato guy. Mm-hmm. I like sweet potato fries. Those are fine. But just sitting there eating sweet potatoes, not really my thing.
Sure.
These were really, really well done.
Were they candied?
They were not. They were caramelized.
Okay.
So they were very, in that regard, and they also had some cinnamon in them and a little nutmeg. Mm-hmm. But not as much as they had in the pie, which is weird. But anyway, it was very tasty.
Good.
Like everything was spot on.
Good.
So
good.
Yeah, it went well. You? I know you cook it.
We host every year, and I'm the chef. You know, so yeah, I spent Wednesday getting the turkey in the pool so it can brine for 24 hours. And
do you actually stuff your turkey?
I do.
You do? You actually do that still?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I do. You know, and I know they warn you not to do that because of salmonella and everything.
If you cook it enough, it won't matter.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you cook it correctly, you don't have to worry about that. And my family is a stuffing family as opposed to a dressing family.
Okay.
Because if it's in the bird, it's stuffing. If it's not, it's dressing.
Oh.
So we are a stuffing family, so I cram as much of that inside that bird as I can. And
my grandma used to do that.
My sister's the official taste tester, and she comes in and gives me the thumbs up. Okay, we're good. But
nice.
Yeah, I started putting it together on, probably Tuesday.
How many courses did you put together this year?
Well, we had the bird.
Okay.
And I brine him for 24 hours and then get that in the oven on Thursday morning, and then stuffing / dressing and mashed potatoes, gravy. We do sweet potatoes, cranberries.
Okay.
And then my mom, the baker in the family, brings pie.
Okay. So that's 5, 6, maybe 7.
Yeah.
That's about what we had.
Yep.
We had a lot. We had a lot of everything.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot of leftovers.
Yeah, there's a lot of leftovers always. Because any chef or any cook, my sister has her chef's degree and everything. The most complicated meal of the year is Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Even then, that includes Christmas and all the other holidays too.
Right.
Like there's nothing like it. And so it's complicated and it's very labor intensive for the most part. So I always commend people like yourself who are put in charge of cooking everything.
Honestly, I really like it.
Do you?
I really like it. I went back in my mind a little bit here on last Thursday when I was cooking, and I think this was the 16th or 17th Thanksgiving I've hosted.
Wow. Well, you got it down now.
Going all the way back to when I was in college.
Now, I happen to know that you also change up how you cook the bird every year, though, don't you?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
I've thought about I've done the deep fryer.
Okay.
And we've done the regular oven roast, which we did this year. I've pondered putting it on the Weber kettle and smoking it that way and everything. But
what is your preferred method of cooking the bird?
If I had the time and could spend the time regulating the temperature the right way, I'd probably smoke it on the kettle.
Okay, I know you've talked a lot about smoking it. Yep. I don't know if that's...
Yep,
that's pretty involved, I think.
It is. Yeah. It is, and especially here where your temperatures are in the 20s, it takes a lot more effort to keep your temperature up.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't always have the time to be able to run outside, check temperature. Okay, this isn't working. Fix that. It's easier to do all that kind of stuff in the summer.
Right. Yeah.
So it's easier to oven roast it, and you can do some things that way too.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Well, and every year is going to be a little different depending on how busy you are and all that kind of stuff too. So that's the other thing that.
Yeah, and we were busy because we had 3 home games on Tuesday.
Right.
So,
yeah, a bunch of home games.
You
that
know,
day.
so that's a good segue. Let's jump into that because even though it was a holiday last week, we still had some teams playing.
We did. We had some teams playing, and men's basketball's been off now for a couple of weeks. They'll end that this coming weekend. But the hockey teams have been kind of taking over, and women's basketball have kind of taken on, full front and center.
Yep.
In terms of their seasons. Both hockey teams are in a good place right now. I'm going to start with men's hockey because they've won 4 in a row.
4 straight, yeah.
And when they were sitting at 1-5, wasn't looking so great. But 1-4 in a row, and you've been there for all of them. So give me a lowdown.
It was a week. All of it happened in a week.
Yeah.
They lost their River Falls game on the Friday, and you're sitting at 1-5, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this could go off the rails really quickly.
Yeah.
Or it can go the other way.
Yeah.
And fortunately for them, it went the other way. They came out after the River Falls game and played a wonderful game against Stout.
Yeah.
They played extremely well in a building where they
Traditionally haven't done as well.
Well, I always thought that. And then I looked at McKenna's record down there, and I'm going, holy cow, he's won 10 games in this place.
Yeah.
So, okay, his teams do play fairly well there. But it's a difficult place to play.
Yeah.
And they're a team that plays in their building very, very well. And his guys came out and they executed flawlessly for the bulk of that game.
Yeah.
And it carried over then to the Tuesday against Concordia, Wisconsin, where I think they played their best game of the year. I thought that was flat out their best game. And they probably – it was unlucky that they had to go to overtime to do it, because they outplayed them. They outshot them badly. They outchanced them, and they just couldn't score goals.
Yeah.
So they had to go to overtime. They got the win that way. And you go to Northland, which is always a difficult place to play.
Yeah,
it's small. It's
small
cold.
building.
It's dark. It's not conducive to a lot of flow because the ceiling is so low. The puck hits the ceiling all the time. It goes out of play all the time. It's not an easy place to play. And on Friday there, they went out and they were great in the first 2 periods and took a nap in the third. And then Saturday they had to go back there for a second game.
They flipped it almost.
And they took a nap in the first, and about halfway through the second they started to wake up, and in the third they were fantastic.
Okay.
And they did what they had to do to get the wins. So they got their 4 in a row. They've clawed their way back to 500, and sets the stage for a weekend where you're playing 2 teams in the top 10.
Yeah.
And you can't take a nap for a period now.
Now, for those of you who don't know, it's Eau Claire and Stevens Point
Yep.
is what John is referring to.
Yep, Eau Claire is number 9 and Stevens Point's number 8, I think.
Yeah, so you got 2 top 10 teams.
Correct.
Always both are very tough. Game 1 of that, by the way, is the Eau Claire game. That'll be at Hobbs Ice Arena on Friday. That's at 7 p.m. And then they'll be back home at Westman taking on the Pointers on Saturday.
Yep.
Which will bring up that's a doubleheader of UWS versus Pointers.
Yep.
Because men's basketball will be back in action. They're undefeated still, 5-0.
Right. Yeah, they're playing great.
Yeah, they're playing really well
Wow.
right now. 2 weeks off, and they'll be taking on the Pointers at 3 o'clock. Excuse me, in a game, and you'll be able to hear both me and John on 91.3 FM with live radio.
And that was
broadcasts.
kind of the point game last year.
Right,
Was
yeah.
where their
where they
season
flipped.
kind of turned.
Yeah, that was where that second half against Point, they had bust legs really bad in the first half of that game, and I thought, oh my gosh, because they got down by 15. They were down, I want to say, close to that at halftime, and then they had a chance to either tie or win that game in the last 2 minutes. They came all the way back.
Well,
to the
that's
second half.
the game where if it's 3 minutes longer, they win it.
Yep, exactly, because Point was hanging on for dear life by the end of that game.
Yep.
And so, it'll be interesting to see how that game plays out now that they're coming to our place, and
Yep.
we'll see how that all unfolds. Women's hockey also playing pretty well right now. They had a couple of disheartening
They had a tough stretch
results.
in there.
Yeah, they had a couple of tough ones. That loss to Augsburg was a tough one, I know, for them. But since then, they've been playing really well. The only blip in there is that tie against Northland, but they've
Right.
they've got some nice wins in there. Had a tough loss against Eau Claire. Won and tied against Northland, and then the wins against UW Stevens Point.
No, they only tied Northland. They haven't played them twice.
I thought they played them twice.
No, just
okay,
once.
just the once. Okay,
Just the tie.
my mistake. And then the win against St. Scholastica, back to back. That was nice.
Yeah.
It
It was. I mean, the Stevens Point game was a great answer.
Yeah, it was
because
after the Eau Claire game,
you're up 2-0. You had that.
Yeah.
What happened in Eau Claire? Then you go into Northland. You're up 2-0,
Yep.
and then end up
End up with a 2-2 tie.
Going in 2-2 tie, and then they get the extra point because of the shootout.
Yep.
And then having to get on the bus, having to go to Stevens Point, and
Playing a really good game down there.
Yeah, and they could have easily just it's a long
Yeah.
trip, we're tired, and they could have folded.
Yep.
And they played a really good game.
Yep, and then came back and beat the bridge rivals in St. Glasgow, which is always a big game.
Yeah.
And they had good energy that night. I watched a fair amount of that one. That one they played well.
Yep.
So they've strung together some nice results and strung together some nice periods of play. So
Yes.
hopefully they'll be able to keep that going. They've got a rough stretch coming up, but that's that was big. I think that's big for them. And women's basketball finally came home.
Yep.
After being on the road for a bit. Came home and they've played 3 games now since we last were on the podcast. Lost their home opener to Stout on that Tuesday. Got down early. Didn't really find their flow until the second half. By then, of course, it was too late. That's a pretty good Stout team.
They're pretty good.
Yeah. They beat Martin Luther by 60 last night.
Right.
And then I saw that score. Anyway, and then the Yellowjackets tried to come back against Luther. Luther's a pretty darn good team. They're big. They're athletic.
And they came in, 0-4?
Yeah, they were 0-4.
But that was a really misleading 0-4.
Yeah, that was really misleading. They had played some really good teams, and had a couple of games where they were close at the end that they unfortunately slipped out of their grasp. And it's kind of the same formula, basically. The Luther got up early and then kind of held on the rest of the way. That was a game the Yellowjackets felt like they kind of let one go just because they couldn't make enough shots.
Right.
They had less turnovers. They had more offensive rebounds. Took 7 or 8 more shots than Luther did in that game, but just the shots weren't falling.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens, and so they ended up losing that game. They shot only 29% in that game. That's not going to be.
That's not a good number. You're not going to beat anybody with that.
But they had a really good response last night against Lakeland.
Yeah, but it didn't look like it. First half. Both teams were pretty ugly in the first half.
Their bugaboo has been the first quarter. First and second quarters have been their bugaboo. They've played much better in the second half once they've made a few adjustments at halftime and gotten into the game. They got down 17-10 in the first yesterday. We're falling a lot. Neither team is exactly
turning the ball over
a lot. But they made a nice run in the second quarter.
Well, yeah. And I was sitting with TJ Oaks, baseball coach, and their coach got that technical.
Yep,
that turned the game.
It did.
Everything turned on that technical foul.
And it was kind of a technical came out of nowhere.
Yeah, they don't stop the game very often for a technical, and when that happened, it was like, whoa, you don't see that too often.
Yeah. Well, Emily got one against Emily Carpenter got one against Luther that was kind of out of the blue, and this one was also pretty much out of the blue. There wasn't a lot of yelling, and because a lot of times when a coach gets a technical, they tend to flip out. That's not what happened on either one of these technicals.
Right.
Emily just turned and sat on the bench. And their coach did basically the same thing. Just, okay, well, it's a technical foul, I guess, And then, took advantage of the free throws.
Made the free throws, and they came down and made a bucket on the possession.
They did. And that did flip the game a little bit. UWS led by 1 at the half against Lakeland. Then in the second half, they got
really
up by 8.
Away.
Lakeland came back with a couple of threes. UWS led by 2 going in the fourth, but then in the fourth quarter, they really turned it on, especially defensively.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Lesha had a game.
Yeah.
She had a really good game.
8 steals?
Yeah, she had 9 points, 8 steals, and 2 turnovers in 29 minutes. I mean, those are numbers that are crazy good.
Yep.
Especially the 8 steals.
If you can get that off your bench, I mean.
Whew. She was my player of the game.
Yeah.
Afterward. I mean, Charlotte Firstall, the freshman who's got some game to her. 17 points, 12 rebounds. Lise Bestinen, 15 points, 11 rebounds. They were both really good, but Mackenzie Lesha was the key in that run that they put in at the end. I mean, when you have 8 steals in a game, you're doing some work defensively. She had 4 in a row at one point in that fourth quarter when they pulled away, and she was just really good.
Yeah,
she played a whale of a game, and they came back. They had 3 players scoring double figures because Elsa Olsen had 10 too. So it was a really good response to the game against Luther.
Yeah,
Coach Carpenter told me afterwards she's just wanted her team to play with a little more toughness, and they definitely did that against Lakeland. So that was good to see. So they're in a nice little place right now too, and they've got a couple of weeks off now.
Yeah,
so,
they don't play for a while.
Yeah, they don't play until the 8th of December. So they've got some time now to kind of, if there's any lingering injuries there or any soreness, take care of that.
When they come back, they're in conference play.
Yeah, because they're going to be playing Crown and Morris back to back when they come back. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff coming up here, in the next few days, and otherwise, things are looking pretty good. I mean, men's basketball 5-0, women's basketball 3-4 with a young team.
Yep.
I think they've got only 1 senior on the entire roster.
Yep.
So it's a young team that's learning as they go. Women's hockey is in a good groove, and men's hockey 1-4 in a row. You can't really ask for much more going into a big series. So
yeah.
that's teams are looking good right now.
Yeah, absolutely they are. So we're going to take a time out here, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little hockey. We'll have Dan Laughlin, head coach of the Yellowjacket women's hockey team, and Jada LeBlanc, senior defender on the Yellowjacket women's hockey team. So we're looking forward to having them for the roundtable segment. You are watching this week's episode of Eye of the Swarm.
Find your passion. Find your people. Find your purpose. Find your superior.
We're back on the roundtable segment of this week's Eye of the Swarm, and it is time to talk a little hockey. And we've got Yellowjacket head coach Dan Laughlin, Jada LeBlanc, who may be a senior, maybe a senior next year. We're not sure. That'll be maybe in another episode. Who knows?
She's enrolled here.
She is enrolled for now, and coach is politicking to have her re-enroll for another year, and we can address that later on in the
podcast
because we'll give the hard sell. We tried it with Lawson McDonald a couple years ago. That didn't work.
No, so, he was pretty set on going.
Yeah, he was pretty set on being done.
I mean, even Rich tried to intervene there, and it just didn't happen.
Take notes from him.
It didn't work.
Yeah,
so.
It didn't happen. So I mean, Jada is as focused as Lawson was, but I don't know. Are you, Jada? Are you as focused as Lawson was?
Probably not.
Apparently she was until she talked to Dano.
Right.
It's kind of the lesson that
she
I
knew
got.
what she wanted to do, and then coaches muddied the waters a little bit.
Well, because I got here, unfortunately, a little late for recording this, and I walked in, and she basically just kind of threw him under the bus in the minute that I was here. So
he was already
I was fine until he came
that.
along and said something. So
she'll be back.
Only comment. We'll see about that.
All right, that'll do it for this episode.
All right, yeah. So we now know the status, sort of.
So let's talk a little bit now about the start of the campaign for you, because it's hard to believe we're through November, and within a week or two you're going to be halfway through your schedule. That's how fast all this goes. So let's talk a little bit about the start of the year and ups and downs and everything. Yellowjacket women's hockey.
Yeah, it has gone by very, very quick. We talked about that in pre-games before, but I think we're off to a pretty good start. I think it took a couple weekends to kind of figure out, how we have to play every game, and right now it's just a matter of preparing ourselves, for every game, every weekend, because every game's so valuable, as you know, in the 25 game season. So. I would say we're off to a good start. I mean, we've learned some tough lessons, but we are learning, and so that's a good thing. And we're just keep moving ahead and preparing for the next game.
You brought up the length of the season. I want your feedback on that, because in one of the pregame interviews at Northland talking to McKenna, he gave me we play a high school schedule. High schools actually play more games than we do, and he wishes the NCAA would allow for more games to be played. How do you feel about that?
I would like that as well. I mean, you practice so much, that's not a bad thing either, but I think it gives you a little bit more freedom to just get your team prepared, like not only just like every individual prepared, you got more games, you can get more people in lineups. I wish it would, I know back in the day, Garves, when we were playing, I think we had like 30 or 32 or something like that. I'd like to see it around 30. Mm-hmm. I think with that, I think that's doable. I mean, we did it, so I would like to see a little more games.
Obviously, I imagine from a player standpoint, you'd love to play more and practice less.
Definitely. We have so many week spans of we just practice. Even this week, we have 5 days of practice, no games, and it's hard to kind of stay motivated and focused, especially when it's just practice every single day. And, we kind of focus our season on, like, Dano, you always say, we have, games of 5. So we'll go 5 games at a time, and that's how we kind of break our season up. I think it would definitely be a lot easier to have more games if you don't show up for a game. Then it's so detrimental to your whole season because it's more important. You need to be there for every single game, and sometimes that's just not always possible. So I think more games would definitely be better, and we have such a long season, too, where it wouldn't be bad to fill it with as many games as we can. So
It's kind of like
Isn't it-
college football. I mean,
yeah.
if you do lose 2 games, like it's not saying we're out if we do that, but
Right.
you know, it's hard to catch up with so
Well, it
many
used to
of
be, I think, and I can't remember exactly when this happened, but I think back in the old days, you could play up to 25, 30 regular season games of Division III, and then the NCAA.
Well, we do play
mandated-
25 in the regular season.
Right, but I mean, you could play more games, and the NCAA started to mandate less games because there was, I think, a feeling that they were missing too much class time or something like this, wasn't there? Like, I remember something
Kind of
like
going
that.
down a little bit of a rabbit hole, and I'm sure Nick will correct me if I'm wrong in what I'm saying, but a lot of it stems from the Division III philosophy
Okay.
and it being less about
The sport.
the competition and more about the holistic approach to it.
Oh, okay, right.
And so, yes, they miss too much class time. Yes, we maybe we should cut back so they're not having to miss class time. They have a chance to do other things. They have a chance to have a job. All of those things factoring into the holistic approach of the Division III student athlete.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if you ask the student athletes, they'd be like, well, we still get the holistic thing.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
we're still going into class. We've proven that with our numbers.
Right, yeah.
You know, and we all have to have jobs, it seems like, you know, except for the international kids. But we got to figure out a way to make some money.
Right.
So we have that, and we have social lives and everything, but we have room to play more games. And it seems like anytime there's any kind of discussion on legislation, and you can jump in on this too, Dano, is maybe we should cut back. Let's find a way to
Yeah.
cut back 5% of the game, the number of games played, and back that off from 25 to whatever 5% of 25 is. You know,
Right, yeah.
so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Doesn't make
And
sense
I
to
don't.
me.
I think if they canvass the membership, the coaches and the athletes would all say, no, we don't want to back that off. But administrators look at it and go, no, this is.
Yeah.
And there's probably some budgetary reasons too that
Yeah.
I'm not willing to get into.
Right.
But I think from the D3 philosophy standpoint, it's not necessarily always about games played.
That could be true. I think that the overall philosophy is to have a well-rounded experience. I think that is more. Whereas, you know, Division One, they play way more games, and the reason why they play way more games is because they're literally, I mean, they're on scholarship. That's all they do.
Yeah, they're on scholarship. They don't have.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have any shackles on them for,
No.
okay, you're out of season now, your coach can't talk to you, you
Right,
can't post on
right.
social media, you can't do this or that. Division II has a couple more shackles than Division I, and then Division III is just,
Yeah, yeah. So it does filter down, because Division Two also still has that. It's still pretty holistic even there. Like they want you to have the full well-rounded experience there. You know, because they play a few more games Division Two, but not a lot. I mean, they're not playing 10 more games like you do at Division One.
Right.
Where, you know, instead of playing 25, you'll play 35 during the regular season, and that's before maybe NCAA tournament or anything else, or postseason tournament. So yeah, it filters down pretty quickly. Division One, like you said, it's basically however many games you want to play. I mean, there are mandates there, but that's not, you know, I mean, those mandates are floating.
Right.
Whereas at Division Two and Division Three, it's a little bit more, you know, this is how many games at maximum you can have.
right.
So, and that, I think, like I said, that changed over a while ago. I know the NAIA does not have that rule. You can play as many games as you want to play, basically, in the NAIA. So that's one of the big differences between those two organizations. You know, and like you said, unfortunately, that doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room if you have a few off nights. You know, like we were talking. Not to, like I said, we don't want to go too far down rabbit hole.
Yeah,
But,
I'm climbing out now.
okay, there we go.
Yeah.
That's our rabbit hole segment for this week.
But it puts you in an awkward spot because you don't have the automatic qualifier.
Right,
So,
right.
and you've got 2 top 10 ranked teams in your conference, so you have to be nearly perfect.
It's hard without that AQ. I mean, it's again, you have to be playing your best hockey game one and through game 25, and you do almost have to be perfect. And you know, it's little like I said about college football, same thing. It's, you know, now they're starting to get more playoff stuff in their structure because there's teams that deserve to be in there. So, you know, it's no different from what we're kind of going through. And but with that said, you got to prepare and you know, be ready to play every game. So that's our focus.
Talk a little bit about you talked about breaking it up in the 5 games and everything. So talk to me a little bit about sort of the feeling out process of the first 5, because in a lot of ways that's what it is, as you're getting used to teammates, certain situations, all of that, how you carry some of that from the first 5 over to the next 5 to sort of have that build up to when you have to be playing your best.
Our first 5 was a huge learning experience this year. I think that was when we had a lot of ups and downs within the first 5 games. Like, this isn't even throughout a season. This is throughout 1, 2, 3 weeks.
Right.
Almost those first 5. And, yeah, you just kind of got to figure out what works and maintain that and be consistent with that. And that's huge. Figure out what doesn't work, and when things, aren't going your way, what you need to do to change that around to make it better going into those next 5. So I think for us, a huge thing is consistency, and that's something that we need to focus on and maintain so that we can continue building by the time playoffs rolls around.
Okay, this is interesting. So, to me it is anyway. You have a roster that by and large has been here. Why was it such a big feeling out process then and getting used to things in the first 5 games when you have so many players that have been here and that you've played with?
Yeah.
So why was it that big of a process?
We had a year of change.
Yeah, and I'm not speaking for Jada here, but I think the previous year in the spring, we got together a lot of meetings towards the end of the year, and we decided, like, we got to change this. We got to get this program back to a top 10 team, and what's the years we were top 10, we were always, not every night, but pretty much every night, the hardest working, most competitive team on the ice, no matter what our skill level was. Without that being there, you're going to struggle in a game. So, again, we kind of learned in those first 5 games that if we don't compete and work our hardest every game, then it's going to be a very long 60 minutes. And I think that's the hard part. Just not up with us. It's for every team, every level out there. If you don't work hard and compete, I mean, you're asking for some trouble. So, as long as our habits are good of, hard work first, compete, and then let the skills just pile on top of that, we'll be fine, and we'll be in every game. But that's, I think, what we really learned. You can talk about it like we did the year before, and then the first 5 games came through, and it's like, all right, it didn't go how we wanted it to go, but, we got to get back to that hard work, compete, let's go. I mean, that's how we're going to turn this program around.
Because you came through, 2-3 in the first 5?
Yes. Yep. So a little punch in the face, but sometimes that's good.
From the player standpoint?
Definitely. Same idea. That 2-3 record, we started off great, 2 wins right off the back, and then we had a setback. And we needed that, honestly, to kind of use it as a wake-up call, and we came back the next couple of weekends and got our record back up. But we had to go through that to figure out that we absolutely need to show up for 60 minutes every single game, or else it's not going to be pretty.
How do you you're a captain, you're a senior, how do you drive that into the heads of everybody in that room? Because it's not an easy thing.
No,
when
it's
you're
not.
talking about having 25 people on a roster, how do you drive that home, number one?
Right.
And number two, when you're a senior, well, I'm a freshman, I got 3 years left.
Yeah.
So how do you drive that home?
Again, I'll just hop in here, but I think, with our culture, too, that we built, it's really encompassed around just trusting one another. And when you start kind of going on that level and not thinking about so much of the game, but just, I got to do this for my teammates. It's not about you, who's getting the points and this and that. But, again, just trusting that your teammates will work just as hard as you're working for them. And I think that's what's, there's nothing else you can really go at.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to have that trust. You got to, kind of wear your heart on the sleeve there and trust that everyone's doing the same thing. And when that's happening, and it has, like I think we're as, not, there's teams that got more skill, but we will be in every single hockey game we play if we have that. And that's, we talk, our culture is talked about every day. But like you said, Garves, it's $1 million question. I mean, it's hard to live every day.
Yeah.
And it's hard to live every game, but you just got to prepare and plan, for it. And then when the puck drops, you're trusting.
Definitely. I think the biggest thing is hockey is a team sport. We all know that. But it's also very individual in the sense that you need to show up every single day, and everyone else does, in order to have this full team, this full work ethic, and this full, compete to keep us in games. No one wants to lose. Everyone wants to win. And it's hard to definitely keep everyone motivated when we are having a little, low point of the season. So
Right.
it is hard, but it's just that continuous reminder of that the potential that we know we can be and how good of a team we can be, and you just need to show up and be able to do that for yourself, and everyone needs to do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and I'm going to kind of, it's not quite the same, I don't think, with the women's side, but on the men's side, what we're talking about here is a sense of urgency, right? So you have to bring it every day. One of the problems I know that Rich tackles, and that actually every, I think, college hockey coach tackles at a certain level, is that when you're getting guys in from lower leagues, that's not the right word, junior leagues, they play a lot of games during the year.
Yep.
So there's always a next game to play. So we didn't have it tonight. We didn't have it the next night. We still got 50 games to go.
Right.
In college, you don't have that luxury. You can't afford to take a night off, because 1 or 2 nights off is going to set your season back. And now all of a sudden it's pretty much over, because you've got 25 games. You've got half to maybe a quarter of what you're going to play at the junior level. And I'm not sure on the women's side with the tier 1 teams and stuff like that, how many games they play. But again, it's that sense of urgency, and that's a hard thing. Like I said, I know Rich has struggled with it a little bit, trying to get into his guys' heads. Look, you've got 25 games. That's
Right.
it. You can't afford to have games where you just don't feel like it, or you're not feeling it, and you don't want to work hard. You have to bring it every single night at the Division III level. Otherwise, you'll play yourself right out. Now they have the AQ now, but this was back, before the AQ came along.
Right.
It's like, you guys have to be ready to go. We've got a very, very small amount of wiggle room here. Otherwise our season could go down the tubes in 2 weeks.
Yep.
And so
Exactly right.
So you have to have that kind of sense of urgency. And I think having as many returns as you guys do, when I looked at the roster this year, it's like, wow. I mean, there's some notable newcomers as well that came in, but there's a lot of returning players there, a lot of names that you and I both know. And so that can help a little bit, I would think, in terms of just being able to, because they've been there and they understand now, hey, we can't afford to take any weekends off, because
Right.
if we do,
Well, and that's why it was
We're
so
already out
interesting
of
to
it.
me when she
Yeah.
said the
Like,
first
yeah.
5 games were really kind of
Yeah.
a difficult stretch and a feeling out process. That's why I thought, wow, that was kind of interesting when you have that many veterans back.
well, I think with Jada, and I don't want to speak for her or Dano, but it's when you're changing a mindset as well of what you've had in the past, that's tough. Because even though the names and the faces are the same, if you're changing your mindset, that can sometimes be a tougher hurdle. Because how would we react to this last year? Okay, well, that's not the way we should have. Because now we're trying to change something. We're not trying to go back to where we were. We're trying to go forward. So how are we going to change that? Okay, so we lose a game. How would we react to that last year? How are we going to react to it this year? Could be 2 different things, depending on how you want to change your culture. And that's
in those spring conversations with all the veterans, we had those exact same talks, and we put it all on paper. We still have it on paper. It's kind of our accountability list. They gave one for me, and they have one for themselves. So, you go back to those conversations, and I think with a good veteran team like that, you're going to come out of those ditches quicker than if you have a bunch of new guys or new players on the roster. So, that's where the leadership comes in, and all the upperclassmen as well. So,
it seems like it's resonating a bit. You guys have had some really good results. Some really nice wins already this year.
Yeah.
And we're about a quarter of the way through now.
A
Roughly.
little more than that.
Yeah, a little more of a quarter of the way through. But you guys have had a nice, there's been some nice wins. I mean, you got the win against Point. You got the win against St. Scholastica, which is always a grudge match. I mean, those are the kind of games, and you could have had one against Eau Claire. That
Ooh, tough one.
Yeah.
well, that was the one that confused me, because Avery Schwark came to me and kind of gave me the blow-by-blow of what happened there. And I still don't really understand it. I'm not quite sure what happened there. And then I asked some of your players what happened there, and they couldn't understand it. And then I talked to...
Just ripping that scab right off for him.
Well, I was just wondering what,
We just moved on.
Yeah, I just moved on. But, I mean, what my point is that you gave yourself a chance to win that game.
yeah, it was a great game, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again, like Garver said, but
That's
I mean,
the bigger point is that you guys had a chance to win, even if it was a weird circumstance.
and
We-
just I'm not blaming a officials, but
They're not watching anyway.
that's a horrible call.
We lost
Well, I just never was
control
quite sure what the
at
explanation is
end.
because no one seemed to be able to know what it was. Like I've talked to multiple players on the team and they don't know, and
Right.
the explanation apparently to Dano didn't make sense either. So at least that's what they said. The ones that were on the bench.
Yeah, I don't know.
But the bigger point is that you push Eau Claire right to the very end.
And we did. We competed
Yeah.
that game. We worked hard. We did. We played 60 minutes, and like 58
Yep.
minus the 2 the ref didn't give us, but no, we did. And
Seems like it set a trend.
And you know what? And I don't want
Yeah.
moral victories. We talked about it after the game. Like we don't want to hang our caps on moral victories, but it's like here we are. I mean, if we continue to do this, game after game, weekend after weekend, the scoreboard's gonna be with us majority of the time. So, but sometimes you can play good, and it's those last couple minutes that get you. So,
Yeah. But I mean, like since then, you guys have rattled off some nice wins.
yeah.
Beat Point 5-1. That's a nice
Well,
win.
and that was a really nice response too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I
You
think
know?
that the day before you'd probably say was a disappointment.
Yeah.
With that game at Northland,
For sure.
and then
Yeah.
24 hours later, really nice response.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just on that Point game, I remember I just didn't even go near really. And
That was their only one.
but we just kept going. We kept going, and what a game! I mean, it was a fun game, and
I had
they
a
really
chance to watch some
responded
of it
well.
up here before my basketball broadcast. We watched a little bit of it on the big screen, and yeah, I mean, I was like, wow, they're playing really well right now. A lot of energy. Then I watched some Scholastica game. It was the same thing. The feet were moving and the puck was moving around and getting good opportunities and taking care of things for the most part on the defensive end. So, yeah, but it's all about how you respond to stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, you. I don't think there's been a team on campus that's had a wackier schedule the last like 3 years than women's hockey. I mean, it's just been very. It's like we're gonna play 5 games in 6 days, and then we're gonna take 3 weeks off. It's like, it's just been very, that's what it's felt like. Felt like it's all been like jumbled together.
Yeah.
Things have been rescheduled about 100 times.
Well, that's why I bring up the COVID
Yeah,
games. They
it's
played
just-
one game in January, and then it was like
It was a very bizarre
9 games in 16 days.
Yeah,
or
it
something.
was-
I remember that.
We went NHL schedule.
They
on
were
it.
playing an NHL schedule there for a while, and I was like, I don't know how Dano and the ladies do it because it just keeping that mindset. It's just like, okay,
Well, that's my question. How do you
Yeah.
keep this going now?
Well, I will say, like, at that for Thanksgiving, that was a nice break. I think all of us really wanted it, no matter how we're playing. I mean, it was just, I think it's just, you got to relax your mental health a little bit, and just get back to family, whatever, a little bit, and then get back in it. And so this week we have been, getting back in it. And I, as a coach, I mean, I just try to keep them even in practice to that highest level. And, you just want to create that habit, they call it, right? So, I mean, it's, you just got to keep that high level going in practice.
It's almost like a narrow focus. Don't get distracted by all the other stuff in terms of
Right.
when we're playing, when we're not playing. Let's just keep the energy high.
And it's, we're about 50-minute practices, 55, close to that. So, I mean, it's not
Long ways away from the 2-hour grinders we were having.
I know. And
Oh,
those-
just wait till J term. Those will be back.
Well, but that's one of those things where you also have to take into account everything that they're doing. I mean, because they are student athletes, And there are times where we don't have to go for 2 hours every day.
And it is 6 a.m.
Yeah, or what they need right now is a light skate. Maybe we'll work on a few situational things, and that's it. That's all they need today. Maybe there will be a time where we need a 2-hour practice where there's a bunch of stuff we really have to work on. But you don't have to make a rule. I don't think all the time where it's 2 hours every single day, no matter what. That doesn't necessarily always lead to the best outcome. I don't think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys agree, but that just.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Yeah.
I think one thing too is like we're big on momentum. Even in a game, like you kill off a penalty, you got the momentum, and you're kind of rolling with that. I think that's kind of what we're trying to do right now with this little like gap we have. Is we came off 2 good wins, and now we're just trying to keep that momentum in practices, keep it high speed, keep it short, keep it simple, just focus on our skills and keep doing what we're doing because it's working for us, and we just got to keep that up going into the next couple games.
So then you get the long break for the semester break, then you come back in January. And now the rubber hits the road. WIAC's tough.
Oh, yeah.
The WIAC is tough. Yeah, I know there's only 5 teams in the conference on the women's side. The WIAC is a tough conference. How do you approach that?
Well, like I said, it doesn't matter who we play, what building we're in. It's how we play, and again, it's this. The simple part, if you want to call it that, is just we got to focus on what we can control. We don't know what falls. I mean, we know what they got. We know what Eau Claire, Augsburg. I think we play all, 6 of those games in 7 games. So I mean, we have to take care of the things we can control, and that's our work ethic and our compete level. And again, if we do that, we will be in every game we play. I guarantee you. And that's it. You just got to have that first. You don't want to overwhelm yourself by, this person on River Falls is a 5-time All-American and this and that and whatever. Just let's take care of what we can, control and trust the teammates will do the same for them. That's our philosophy. Doesn't matter where we're at. If you don't show up against the worst team, you have a pretty good chance of losing that game, which we almost did.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, again, it's just keeping that piece in our minds before every game. I think that's our mindset. But it is a tough schedule.
It is.
That being said,
yeah, that's it. It's a tough one.
But I like it. I like matching. Let's go. If we're gonna make this a top 10 team, again. Well, we have to compete and win against some of these teams, that are there like we did in the past.
Yeah. I know when I interview students and stuff, a lot of times I'll ask them, "You're a senior now, how fast did that go? You're about to win 300 games as the head coach here. How fast did that go?"
You know what? I can't even. I'm getting old. I know that. And maybe when it's all done or something, I can start looking back. But like right now, every year is that's your focus. It's like, and then even next year you're with the recruiting and stuff. But so, I'm honest with you. I don't look back. I can't.
Right.
If you do, you're kind of in a rut. So, but yeah, it's gone by very quick.
That's interesting because when Joe Mooney won his 200th this year, I went into his office and I said, "Congratulations on 200, Coach." And he goes, "Huh?" And he turned and looked at me, and I was like, and then he sat there for a second, and he was like, "I guess it is 200, huh?"
I've been here 16 years.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
That's what he said. He said almost the same thing that Daniel just said, which is kind of, I think, reflective of coaching, though, is that, it's like, oh, that went by pretty quick, but I didn't even know that was going to happen, and I'm getting old. Like that was, and then Lynn, when she won her 300th, it was the same thing. It was like, oh, it just means I'm getting old. Yeah. That was literally like word for word what she told me. She said, I've been around a long time, and that's all that really means to me. So
right.
I think if you get to that milestone, like you said, as a coach, especially when you're in the middle of the season, and they say congratulations, and they're like, what? What just happened?
No.
Did something happen? Yeah, I don't know about. When you're in the throes of the season, though, I can see why it doesn't quite register.
Right.
And I can see that Daniel hasn't given it, I don't think, a ton of thought, but just.
No, I haven't.
But still, 300 is a remarkable.
300 is a really
remarkable number.
No,
yeah. That's a nice milestone.
Again, it's been an absolute blessing to be here for all these years. I mean, to play here, to graduate 2 degrees here, met my wife here. I mean, everything's come from this university pretty much. So it has been an absolute honor. The players, it's so fun every year. Even if you have much of the same group back, it's, there's still growth, maturity in all the players. So it's just fun to see them grow.
So, having the same group back. Let's go back to the beginning of this whole thing. So, what do we need to do to make sure that you come back? Because I'll throw it out there now.
I missed all this before we were starting.
I will have a very, very happy 4-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old, if his favorite player comes back.
Boy, Teddy's got a lot of. He's got a lot of, like, female athletes, doesn't he? That he enjoys. He
loves that team.
I'm the favorite.
Yeah,
Let's put that out there.
Yeah. Okay. Because I mean, there are arguments. I've seen arguments now about your son from just about every team on campus with women's athletes.
Well,
I mean, it's women's soccer, it's volleyball, and now it's women's hockey. I mean, it's like a big brown circle.
It is.
Avery Swartz still brings up, why aren't I nannying that kid? This is, I hear it from all angles now. So now I want to hear.
She had him all summer.
Yeah, exactly. She's kind of getting selfish about it now. Sorry, Avery. But I want to hear a little bit more now about Jada's connection to Teddy here, because now this is the latest one now that I'm hearing about. So Jada, the floor is yours. Tell me all about it.
Avery pawned him off to me. That's pretty much what it was.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's about it. We've just been friends ever since. Me and Teddy.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
And this was probably sharing more than I should, but this is really cute. So a couple of weeks ago, he was saying his prayers before he went to bed, and we go through the whole thing, and then I say, okay, do you have anything else you want to pray for?
Yeah.
And he says, Dad, I want the Yellowjacket men and the Yellowjacket women to win. I'm like, okay, you can pray for that. That's good.
Fine.
And he goes, and I want Jack to be the winning goalie and Jada to score a goal. Okay, we can pray for that too. So we did. And the next day, it all happened.
He's got a.
It all happened.
He's got a direct line to the Almighty.
Because I had texted Emma and said, you got to let Jada know that this is what.
She did.
And this is what he prayed for.
Yep.
Well, because Jack's got a couple of wins now, so now we got.
Yeah, he got a couple of wins,
yeah.
and so everything he asked for that day came to pass.
Tell Teddy I have a good prayer list for him.
Yeah, I was about to say, I might have to check in with Teddy a little bit more.
Boy.
And he can attest to it. I don't score. I'm not a goal scorer. Never have been.
Well, you picked a hell of a goal to score.
Yeah, I know.
Coast
I
to
don't know.
coast.
Yeah.
He didn't even see it.
This wasn't your basic everyday goal. We're on the bus, and I'm watching the video of it, and I just went, wow, she scored, but wow, what a goal.
Yeah, she went all the way down the ice.
Yeah.
And it's true that Dan, you didn't see it?
No.
No, he didn't. And
I
I
think
He was otherwise occupied, apparently,
Right.
at that moment. Anyway, she scored a really nice goal.
the wow factor, I was thinking the same thing. Everyone came over and huddled, and they're like, "Where did that come?" I was like, "I don't know, guys. I've never done that before in my life.
Don't count
I
on
have
it again?
clue."
Something came over
No.
her, and it just,
For Teddy.
Yeah, it was.
Something just came over her.
Yep.
And I think it was probably the
It very well may have been.
Yeah, I mean,
there might have been some intervention
Jack held
there.
up his end of the bargain.
Yep.
Jada held up her end of the bargain.
No, he was a very happy kid, and I got home that night because we played at Stout that night, and I got home.
Give him the clip.
It was about 1 o'clock in the
Okay.
morning, and I had just settled into bed, and then he heard me upstairs, I guess, so he started calling me, and I came down, and he goes, "Hey, Dad, did the men win?" I'm like, "Yeah, the men won." "Did the women win?" "Yeah, the women won too." "All right, good night, Dad." So he was good after that.
He was good. He
He
didn't know
was
all the
good.
details
Yeah.
until the next day.
He was good
Yeah,
after that. So I
didn't
gave him the details the next day, and then he lost his mind and went right to his little table hockey game, and Jada was playing, and Jack was in the net, and all this stuff. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
That was cool.
yeah,
Good for him.
Yeah, he's got a whole thing going there. But at any rate, I'm looking at the clock here because I know somebody has to get to class.
Sadly.
So
not me.
don't let the academic side of the street hear that one. But soon as they get to class, so final thoughts.
Good talk. I mean, that's probably about it. Well, I'm glad I found out the background now. I feel like
Yes.
I'm getting the background now on everything with Teddy. So
It's all clicking.
because he's been making the rounds
Yep.
the last few years, and now it's all about Jada.
He's almost like the,
Now I know.
the mascot in some way because
What-
he's everywhere.
Yes,
When
we
I
should
show
get
up-
him a little bee costume.
Well, that was his first Halloween. Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. Yeah, we can make him.
I'll show you a
All right,
picture.
we'll get
Little
another
Buzz.
one.
We can make a little Buzz out of him. I don't know.
He'll see Jada L next year. So.
Yeah, man, back to that.
Yep.
We'll see about that.
He'll be
Yeah.
a very happy
To
5-year-old
be
at that time.
determined.
Well, I'll just have to now. Now I'll know when I see him running around over at Westman during a game, and if he's just trailing Jada everywhere she goes.
Yep.
So now I'll know why.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that's okay. That makes sense now. It's all clicking. It's all clicking.
That'll do it for this week's episode of Eye of the Swarm. We want to thank Dan Laughlin and Jada LeBlanc for coming by. For the Big Sound Matt Johnson, I am Jon Garver, and thanks for watching Eye of the Swarm.